Imagine you've just bought your dream home. 6 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, nearly 2 acres of land in a beautiful, affluent suburb. It's perfect. You sink your life savings, over $1.3 million, into this house. You're ready to start a new chapter with your wife and 3 young children. But then, a few days after closing, a letter arrives. The envelope is thick, a bit clumsy. There's no return address. Just your new street number typed on the front with the words, "The new owner." You open it. The letter starts friendly enough. "Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood." But the tone quickly shifts. "My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time." The writer, who calls himself the Watcher, seems to know everything. They know the make and model of your cars. They know you have children. And they ask a chilling question. Have you found what is in the walls yet? This isn't a movie plot. This is the true story of the Broaddus family and their nightmare at 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey. A story that began in June 2014 and would spiral into a years-long mystery that remains unsolved to this day. The first letter was just the beginning. The Watcher claimed the house had been the subject of their family for decades. They said the house was anxious for young blood. Who am I? The letter continued. I'm the Watcher and have been in control of 657 Boulevard for the better part of 2 decades now. The writer seemed to have an intimate, almost obsessive knowledge of the home's layout, mentioning specific windows and porches and claiming to see the Broaddus family as they began their renovations. Derek and Maria Broaddus were understandably terrified. They had 3 children under the age of 10. The letter mentioned them specifically. Once I know their names, I will call to them and draw them to me, it read. The family immediately contacted the Westfield Police Department. The police advised them not to tell anyone, especially their new neighbors, as any one of them could be the suspect. Imagine the paranoia. Every neighbor who smiled and waved, every contractor working on their home, every person who walked by could be the Watcher. The family, too scared to move in, halted all renovations. They started an investigation of their own, looking into the previous owners, the Woods family. Had they received similar letters? When they asked, the Woods family admitted they had received one strange, anonymous letter just days before moving out, but they had dismissed it as a prank and thrown it away. They'd lived in the house for 23 years without any other incidents. This didn't comfort the Broadduses. They were now tied to a house they were too afraid to live in, with a mortgage payment looming. 2 weeks later, a second letter arrived. This one was even more personal. It named the Broaddus children by their nicknames and listed them in birth order. The Watcher had clearly been observing them, the windows and doors of 657. Boulevard, allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house. It also asked, will the young blood play in the basement? Or are they too afraid to go down there alone? I would be very afraid if I were them. It is far away from the rest of the house. If you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream. The terror was escalating. The police investigations seemed to be going nowhere. They looked at the DNA on the envelope, but it didn't match anyone in the system. They investigated neighbors, but leads dried up. The Broadduses hired their own private investigators, including former FBI agents. They installed cameras and alarm systems, but still no answers. A third letter arrived a few weeks after the second. This one was perhaps the most menacing. Where have you gone to? The Watcher seemed angry that the family hadn't moved in. The house is crying from the pain of your new renovations. You have changed it and made it so fancy. It was clear the Watcher felt a sense of ownership, a deep, twisted connection to the property. By this point, the Broaddus family's dream had become a living nightmare. They were paying a mortgage and property taxes on a home they couldn't inhabit. The financial and emotional toll was immense. They tried to sell the house, but the story of the Watcher was becoming local legend. Potential buyers were scared away. Who would want to buy a house that came with its own personal stalker? Desperate, the Broadduses filed a lawsuit against the previous owners, the Woods family claiming they should have disclosed the single letter they had received. This lawsuit, however, had an unintended consequence. It brought the story to the media. In 2015, the tale of the Watcher House went viral. It was covered by news outlets all over the world. The quiet suburban street in Westfield became a macabre tourist attraction. People would drive by, slow down, take pictures. Some even trespassed, trying to peek into the windows. The media attention brought a new wave of speculation. Was it a neighbor who was angry about the planned renovations? Was it a former housekeeper or a descendant of the home's original builder? Was it a prank that got out of hand, or was it something more sinister? One theory focused on a neighbor whose family had lived on the block for decades. This individual was described by others as a bit eccentric, and their house had a direct line of sight to 657 Boulevard. Investigators looked into them, but there was never enough evidence to press charges. Another theory pointed to a younger person, perhaps a gamer obsessed with a fantasy world, playing out a real-life role-playing game. Even the Broadduses themselves fell under suspicion at one point, with some speculating they had invented the story to get out of a bad financial investment. But the sheer terror and emotional distress the family endured makes that theory hard to believe. The police investigation continued, but it was like chasing a ghost. They analyzed the writing style of the letters. They even considered the possibility that the writer wasn't watching from a neighboring house at all, but was perhaps someone who had hidden inside the walls of 657 Boulevard itself, a terrifying thought prompted by the Watcher's own words. The family had the house swept for secret passages or hiding spots. Nothing was found. Years passed. The Broaddus family was stuck. They couldn't live in the house, and they couldn't sell it for what they paid. In 2016, they tried a new tactic. They applied to the Westfield Planning Board for permission to demolish the house and subdivide the lot into 2 smaller properties. Their hope was that 2 new modern homes would be easier to sell and would break the curse of the Watcher. But the town's planning board denied their request, citing concerns about preserving the neighborhood's character. The neighbors, many of whom were once suspects, packed the meeting, arguing against the demolition. The family was trapped from every angle. Finally, in 2017, they found a way to at least get some use out of the property. They rented it out to a family who was willing to live there despite the history. The Broadduses disclosed the existence of the letters, and the tenants agreed to move in. For a while, things were quiet. Maybe the Watcher had given up, but then the 4th and final letter arrived. It was delivered to the house while the renters were living there. It taunted the Broadduses for their attempts to sell and demolish the house. It talked of car accidents, fires, and illnesses that could befall them. It ended with a chilling promise. You are despised by the house. And the Watcher won. After 5 years of terror, financial ruin, and public scrutiny, the Broaddus family finally managed to sell 657 Boulevard in the summer of 2019. They sold it for under $1 million, taking a loss of over $400,000. Not to mention the money spent on taxes, renovations, and investigations. The new owners have not reported receiving any letters. The identity of the Watcher remains a complete mystery. So, who was the Watcher? Was it an older neighbor clinging to a past version of their neighborhood? Was it a disgruntled former resident or employee? Was it a disturbed individual creating a fantasy? Or was it, as some have suggested, a competing buyer who wanted to scare the Broadduses away so they could snatch up the property for themselves? We may never know. The case of the Westfield Watcher is so compelling because it taps into our deepest fears. The idea that your home, the one place you're supposed to feel safe, can be violated by an unseen threat is terrifying. The letters were a form of psychological warfare, expertly designed to prey on a family's vulnerabilities, especially their desire to protect their children. The story has since been adapted into a popular television series, but the real-life mystery is far more unsettling because it has no neat conclusion. There's no unmasking of the villain, no justice for the family. There's only an empty house on a quiet street and a ghost who writes letters. A ghost who could still be out there, watching. What do you think? Who was the mysterious Watcher of 657 Boulevard? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you found this story as fascinating and chilling as I did, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's greatest unsolved mysteries. Thanks for watching.